Hey, it's Andrew. Tonight, I've got 4 unsettling stories that were sent in by real people. Experiences they swear actually happened. What started as routine night shifts slowly turned into something they'll never be able to forget. The kind of moments that make you question every shadow in the darkness and realize that working alone at night means facing things that only come out when everyone else is asleep. But before we begin, I'm curious. Where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel across the world. Let me know in the comments. I try to read as many as I can. Alright, turn the lights down, keep your doors locked, and let's get started. Story 1. The Benefactor. My name is Adrian. I've been working the late shift at our local Burger King for about 3 years now. It's not glamorous, but it pays rent and keeps me busy while I figure out what I actually want to do with my life. I'm a night owl anyway, so being behind the drive-thru window from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. doesn't bother me the way it would most people. The hours are quiet, the work is mindless, and I can usually listen to podcasts during the slow periods between 2 and 4 a.m. This all started maybe 6 weeks ago. I was working the drive-thru solo, which is standard after midnight since corporate decided we're overstaffed during late hours. That's when a car pulled up to the speaker. Male voice, unremarkable, nothing that stood out. He ordered a large double Whopper with cheese meal with a Coke. Pretty standard order. Nothing I'd remember under normal circumstances. The one notable thing about the encounter was when he pulled up to the payment window. He only rolled his window down about 2 inches, just enough to slide his credit card through the gap. His windows were heavily tinted, darker than what's probably legal, so I couldn't see his face at all. Not even a silhouette. Just a hand reaching out with a card. I ran the payment, handed him his receipt through the narrow opening, and told him to pull forward to the second window for his food. He didn't pull forward. He just sat there for a moment, engine idling, and then drove off. Straight past the pickup window, out of the parking lot, and disappeared down the street. I stood there holding his bag of food, confused. I waited a few minutes, thinking maybe he'd realize his mistake and circle back. He didn't. Eventually, I just set the order aside. By 3 a.m., when my official meal break came around, I figured there was no point letting it go to waste. I ate the Whopper meal myself. People do weird stuff sometimes. I've had customers drive off without paying, drive off without their food after paying, even drive off mid-order and never come back. Fast food brings out strange behavior in people, especially late at night. I didn't think about it too much. About a week later, it happened again. Same order. Large double Whopper with cheese meal, Coke. Same barely cracked window, same tinted glass, same credit card transaction. And just like before, he paid and drove off without collecting his food. I remember thinking, that's weird. Someone did this exact same thing last week. But I still wasn't making the connection that it might be the same person. The voice sounded familiar, but a lot of male voices sound similar through a drive-thru speaker at 2 a.m. I ate the meal again. Free dinner. Whatever. It wasn't until the third time, maybe 10 days later, that I realized it was definitely the same person. Same car, a dark sedan with tinted windows. Same order word for word. Same payment method, credit card slid through a 2-inch gap. Same disappearing act. By this point, I knew something unusual was happening, but I wasn't particularly concerned. The food was paid for, nobody was complaining, and I was getting free meals. If some guy wanted to donate his dinner to me every week or so, who was I to question it? This pattern continued for about 3 more weeks. The guy would show up every 4 or 5 days, always between 1 and 3 a.m., always with the same order. I started to almost look forward to it in a strange way. Like, oh, it's been a few days. Wonder if my mysterious benefactor is going to show up tonight. I even started joking about it with my coworker Maria, who worked the kitchen during most of my shifts. She thought it was hilarious. Maybe he's your secret admirer, she'd say. Maybe he's too shy to actually talk to you, so he just buys you dinner. We'd laugh about it, come up with increasingly ridiculous theories, and then go back to the monotony of the shift. Then, about 2 weeks ago, everything changed. It was a Thursday night, maybe 2:15 a.m., dead silent except for the hum of the fryers and the buzz of the overhead lights. I was restocking napkins when I heard that familiar voice through the drive-thru speaker. I knew immediately what was about to happen. He'd order the meal, pay, drive off, and I'd eat it later. I went to the speaker station and took his order. Same meal exactly as expected. But this time, after I confirmed the order and told him his total, he said something else. Something that made every hair on my body stand up. I hope you've been enjoying those Whoppers, Mr. Castellano. My last name is Castellano. It's not on my name tag, which just says Adrian. It's not posted anywhere in the restaurant where customers can see it. It's not on any receipt or any customer-facing documentation. There is no legitimate reason this person should know my last name. I just stood there, frozen, staring at the speaker. My brain couldn't catch up to what I just heard. "Hello?" The voice said, that same unremarkable male voice, but now it sounded different. Knowing. Deliberate. I finally managed to speak. "How do you know my name?" No response. "Who are you? How do you know my last name?" Still nothing. Just silence on the other end of the speaker. "Hello? Are you still there?" I heard his engine rev. Through the window, I saw his car pull away from the speaker, but this time he didn't even come to the payment window. He just drove straight out of the parking lot and disappeared. I stood there for what felt like several minutes, trying to process what had just happened. Maria noticed something was wrong and came out from the kitchen. "You okay?" she asked. I explained what happened. She went pale. "That's really creepy, Adrian. You should call the cops or something." "And tell them what? Some guy knows my last name? That's not illegal. But it's threatening. Or it feels threatening." She was right. It did feel threatening, even though technically nothing threatening had been said. It was the implication. The fact that this person had been doing this for weeks, learning my schedule, and somehow finding out personal information about me. I finished my shift in a state of barely controlled anxiety. Every car that drove past the windows made me jump. Every sound made me think he was coming back. When I got home around 5:30 a.m., exhausted and wired at the same time, I found something on my doorstep. A folded piece of paper held down with a small rock. My hands were shaking as I picked it up and opened it. The note was handwritten in neat, precise letters. "I know what you did. You have 3 days." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I stood there on my doorstep in the early morning light, reading those words over and over. "I know what you did." What did I do? I've been racking my brain trying to think of anything that could explain this. Anything I might have done to anger someone, to cause harm, to create an enemy. I've got nothing. I'm a 27-year-old guy who works at Burger King and spends my days off playing video games and occasionally hiking. I don't have enemies. I don't have secrets. I've never wronged anyone in any significant way that I can remember. I didn't sleep that day. I just sat on my couch with all the lights on, curtains drawn, door locked, trying to make sense of it. That evening before my shift, I almost called in sick. But I needed the money, and part of me thought maybe if I just acted normal, this would all go away. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone from high school I'd forgotten about was messing with me. The shift started normally. Maria wasn't working that night, so I was truly alone except for the kitchen manager who stayed in the back and barely interacted with front staff. Around 1:45 a.m., the drive-through speaker crackled to life. It was him. That same voice. But this time he didn't order food. Instead he said, "I need you to write this down." My mouth went dry. I grabbed a pen and an order pad with shaking hands. "Go ahead," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He gave me an address. Some random place on the outskirts of town in an industrial area I wasn't familiar with. "You have 2 days to deliver $15,000 to that location," he continued, his voice still calm and unremarkable. "If you don't, there will be consequences." Before I could respond, before I could ask any questions, I heard his engine rev and he was gone. I stood there, staring at the address I'd written down, my hands still shaking. $15,000. I didn't have $15,000. I don't even have $1,500 in savings. I lived paycheck to paycheck working fast food. This had to be some kind of scam. It had to be. But the note on my doorstep. The fact that he knew my name, my address, my schedule. This didn't feel like a standard scam. This time I called the police. I explained everything to the dispatcher. The weeks of strange orders, the use of my last name, the note on my doorstep, the extortion attempt. They said they'd send an officer to take a report. Officer Ramirez showed up about 40 minutes later. He was professional and took detailed notes, but I could tell he wasn't particularly concerned. "It sounds like someone's trying to scam you," he said after I finished explaining. "These things usually fall apart once the person realizes you're not going to pay. Just don't engage with them anymore." "But he knows where I live," I said. "He left a note on my doorstep." "Did you see him leave the note?" "No." "Any security cameras at your apartment?" "No." He sighed. "Look, I'll file this report and we'll increase patrols in your area. If anything else happens, any actual threats or attempts to harm you or your property, call us immediately. But right now, there's not much we can do." He took the address the guy had given me and said they'd check it out, but he wasn't optimistic. These addresses are usually fake or abandoned properties. After he left, I felt even more helpless than before. The police couldn't do anything. I couldn't afford to move. I couldn't afford to not work. I was trapped. For the next 2 nights, nothing happened. No visits to the drive-thru, no notes, no contact. I started to think maybe Officer Ramirez had been right. Maybe it was just someone trying to scam me and they'd given up. On the 3rd night, I was at home trying to sleep before my shift. It was maybe 9 p.m. and I just dozed off when a loud crash jolted me awake. I hit the floor on instinct, heart hammering, thinking someone was breaking in. When I finally gathered the courage to look around, I realized someone had thrown a brick through my living room window. Glass was scattered across the floor, and in the middle of the carpet, surrounded by shards, was the brick with a piece of paper wrapped around it. I grabbed my phone and called 911, then carefully unwrapped the paper from the brick. Time's up. You should have listened. 2 police officers arrived within 15 minutes. They took photos, filed another report, collected the brick and note as evidence. They asked if I had anywhere else I could stay for a while. I didn't. My parents lived 6 hours away, and I couldn't afford a hotel for more than a night or 2. One of the officers suggested I look into a restraining order, but for that, I'd need to identify who was doing this. Which I couldn't because I'd never actually seen the person's face. They also confirmed that the address he'd given me was an abandoned warehouse. They checked it out after my first report, found nothing. That was 4 days ago. I've called in sick to work every night since then. I know that probably doesn't matter since he clearly knows where I live, but I can't bring myself to go back to that drive-through window. The thought of hearing that voice again makes me feel physically ill. I've been staying with a friend, sleeping on his couch, but I can't do that indefinitely. I'm running out of money. I need to work. But every time I think about going back, I remember the note. Time's up. What does that mean? What's going to happen now? I've been checking the news obsessively, looking for any stories about attacks or violence that might be connected. Nothing so far. Part of me wonders if maybe it's over. Maybe throwing the brick was his final act, his way of proving he could reach me, and now he's moved on. But I don't really believe that. I think he's just waiting, planning whatever comes next. And I have no idea what to do. Thank you to Adrian for sharing this terrifying experience. The feeling of being watched, targeted, and unable to escape is something nobody should have to endure. Now let's move on to story number 2. Story 2, The Detour. I graduated from college about 10 months ago with a degree in communications, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, has been incredibly useful in helping me secure gainful employment. That's sarcasm, by the way. I'm still living with my parents in the suburbs outside Columbus, and I haven't been able to find a real job in my field yet. The rejection emails have started to blur together. In the meantime, I drive for Uber and Uber Eats, sometimes both in the same night depending on what's surging. It's not a career, obviously, but it's money and it lets me feel like I'm doing something productive while I figure my life out. I know that sounds pathetic, but it's where I'm at right now. I drive mostly on weekend nights, Friday and Saturday, usually from around 9 p.m. until 2 or 3 in the morning. That's when surge pricing kicks in and drunk college kids need rides home from the bars downtown. The pay can be decent if I'm strategic about it, and I've gotten pretty good at reading which areas will be busy at which times. This happened 3 weeks ago. It was a Saturday night, maybe around 1:45 a.m., and I was about ready to call it quits for the evening. I'd had a good night, made decent money, and I was tired. I was about to turn off the app and head home when one more request came through. The pickup was downtown near the bar district, which was normal. But the drop-off location was really far out, way past the suburbs, almost into proper rural territory. The estimated drive time was 43 minutes one way. I almost declined it. Long trips like that are a gamble. Yeah, the fare is higher, but then you're stuck miles from anywhere with surge pricing, meaning you have to drive all the way back empty. But the fare was really good. Almost $70. And the passenger had a 4.9 rating, which suggested they weren't going to be a problem. I accepted the ride. The girl I picked up was probably early 20s, dressed for a night out, heels in her hand and wearing those club clothes that look fun but uncomfortable. She was pleasant enough, maybe a little tipsy but not sloppy drunk. She confirmed the address, plugged in her phone to charge, and we started the drive. For the first 20 minutes we made small talk. She was a senior at Ohio State, out celebrating a friend's birthday. The address she was heading to was her parents' house. They'd recently moved to the country for her dad's work. "It's so far from everything," she complained. "There's literally nothing out there except their house and farms. I hate visiting, but my mom guilt-tripped me into coming home this weekend." I sympathized, kept the conversation light, and focused on driving. The roads got progressively emptier as we left the suburbs behind. Streetlights became sparse, then disappeared entirely. Just dark country roads, occasional farmhouses, and the tunneling effect of my headlights on the empty asphalt. I dropped her off at a nice house at the end of a long driveway. She thanked me, gave me 5 stars, and I watched her walk safely to the door before pulling away. By this point it was past 2:30 a.m., and I was alone in the middle of absolutely nowhere. According to my GPS, I had a 40-minute drive back to civilization. No chance of getting another ride out here. I turned the car around and started heading back toward the highway. Not even 10 minutes into the drive, I saw something ahead. A car stopped in the middle of the road, hazard lights blinking. As I got closer, I could make out 2 people standing in front of the vehicle, waving their arms like they were trying to flag me down. My first instinct was actually not to stop. I've heard enough horror stories about fake emergencies used to rob or carjack people. But these appeared to be a middle-aged couple, which made me feel slightly less threatened. And I'm someone who genuinely struggles to ignore people in distress. I slowed down, stopping about 20 feet away from their car. I rolled my window down a few inches, just enough to hear them but not enough for anyone to reach inside. The woman approached my car while the man stayed by their vehicle. She had this frantic energy, hands gesturing wildly, but there was also something about her delivery that felt slightly rehearsed. Like she'd given this speech before and was following a script. "Thank God you stopped," she said, her voice high and urgent. "We're trying to warn people. There's a collapsed bridge about 2 miles ahead. It happened earlier today, we almost drove right off it. If you keep going this way, you'll end up in the river." She pointed down the dark road ahead of us, into the darkness where my headlights couldn't reach. "The GPS doesn't know yet," she continued. "It'll tell you to keep going straight, but you can't. You have to take the detour." The husband walked over, joining his wife. He was tall, maybe in his 50s, wearing a flannel jacket. His voice was calmer than hers but still insistent. "There's a turnoff about a mile up on your right," he said. "Dirt road, cuts through some woods. It'll add maybe 20 minutes to your trip, but it'll get you back to the main highway safely. You can't miss it. There's an old mailbox at the entrance." I thanked them, said I appreciated the warning, and they stepped back from my car. The woman smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. The husband just nodded and gestured for me to continue. I drove forward slowly, processing what they'd told me. Something felt wrong. I couldn't articulate exactly what, but my gut was screaming that this wasn't right. First of all, if a bridge had collapsed during the day, wouldn't there be police presence? Barriers? Some kind of official warning system? Would they really just rely on random citizens to warn drivers? Second, the way they delivered the information felt off. Too practiced, too coordinated. I decided right then that I wasn't going to trust them. I'd keep going the way my GPS directed and see for myself. About a mile down the road, just like they said, I saw the turnoff. A narrow dirt path disappearing into dense woods, barely wide enough for one car. There was an old mailbox leaning at the entrance, just like the husband had described. Everything in me said don't take that road. I kept driving straight. Another mile or so and I saw the bridge they'd mentioned. I slowed way down, approaching cautiously, ready to stop if I saw any damage. The bridge was fine. Completely intact, no visible damage, no barriers or warnings. I drove across it slowly, half expecting something to happen, but it was solid. Perfectly normal. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel as I continued toward the highway. Those people had lied to me. They tried to redirect me down that dirt road in the middle of nowhere, at 3 a.m. for reasons I didn't want to think about. I made it back to the main highway about 20 minutes later and didn't fully relax until I was back in the suburbs with streetlights and other cars around me. Even though nothing actually happened to me, the experience wouldn't leave my mind. I kept thinking about what would have happened if I'd followed their instructions. If I'd turned down that dirt road, alone in the middle of the night with no cell signal. 3 days later, I did something stupid. Curiosity got the better of me. I drove back out there. It was the middle of the afternoon this time, broad daylight, which made me feel marginally less insane about the whole thing. I retraced my route from that night. The couple obviously wasn't there this time. When I got to the turnoff, that dirt path into the woods, I slowed down and pulled over onto the shoulder. There was something I hadn't noticed that night. A sign, newly posted, nailed to a tree right at the entrance of the path. It said simply, "Dead End." That sign hadn't been there before. I would have seen it in my headlights even briefly. Someone had put it up in the last 3 days. I sat in my car, staring at the path. In daylight, it didn't look particularly menacing. Just a narrow dirt road disappearing into trees, probably an old logging trail or private driveway. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something very bad waited down that path. I wanted to explore it a little, see where it led, but I was worried about my car getting stuck on the rough terrain. So I decided to go on foot. Just a quick walk, see what was down there, satisfy my curiosity. I turned off my engine and stepped out of my car. The afternoon was warm, birds chirping, sunlight filtering through the trees. Nothing scary about it at all. But the moment I stood at the entrance to that path, looking down into the trees, I got a bad feeling. One of those instinctive, primal warnings that your body gives you when something is wrong. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds trying to convince myself to walk forward. I'm in broad daylight, I told myself. Nothing can hurt me in broad daylight. But I couldn't make myself do it. I was just about to give up and head back to my car when I heard it. A scream. Definitely a woman's scream, high-pitched and terrified, coming from somewhere deep in the woods down that path. I didn't wait. I ran back to my car, got in, locked the doors, and peeled out of there so fast my tires kicked up gravel. I was 3 miles down the road before I stopped shaking enough to pull over and think about what I'd heard. Should I call the police? Report it? But what would I say? I heard a scream in the woods? They'd ask me to show them where, and I'd have to go back. I'd have to walk down that path. I couldn't do it. Instead, I called them from where I'd pulled over, gave them the general location, said I'd heard what sounded like someone in distress. The dispatcher took my information and said they'd send a unit to check it out. I don't know if they ever did. I never heard back from them. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't been back to that area since. I changed my Uber settings to not accept rides that would take me more than 20 minutes outside the city. But I can't stop thinking about it. About that couple trying to redirect me. About the scream I heard in daylight. About what might be down that dirt road. Part of me knows I should leave it alone, that I got lucky and I should be grateful. But another part of me keeps wondering about the other people who might not have been as suspicious as I was. The people who took the detour. The people who trusted that couple and drove down that dirt road into the woods at 3 a.m. What happened to them? And that scream I heard, was that someone who'd been warned about a collapsed bridge and ended up somewhere they couldn't escape from? I'll probably never know. And maybe that's for the best. But I'll never forget the way that woman smiled when she told me about the bridge. The way it didn't reach her eyes. The way her husband stood there, calm and patient, waiting to see if I'd take the bait. And I'll never forget that scream echoing through the trees in the middle of a sunny afternoon, coming from a place I was too afraid to investigate. Sometimes I think about organizing a group to go check it out. Me and some friends, all of us together, safely in numbers. But then I remember that sound and I convince myself it's better not to know. Because some answers are worse than the questions. Thank you for that submission. Stories like this remind us that predators don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like ordinary people stranded on the side of the road. Now, time for story number 3. Story 3, The Patrol. This happened 2 winters ago when I was working overnight security for a commercial warehouse complex on the industrial edge of a small city in upstate New York. I was 28 and had been doing the job for about 9 months at that point. The shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and I was always the only employee on site during those hours. There was a supervisor I could call if something went wrong, and the police station was maybe 10 minutes away, but for the most part, it was just me and the security cameras watching over 80,000 square feet of warehouse space. The complex stored mostly industrial equipment and bulk supplies. Pallets of construction materials, commercial kitchen equipment, office furniture awaiting delivery. Nothing particularly valuable in a grab-and-run sense, but expensive enough that the owners wanted overnight security. Most nights followed the same routine. Clock in at 11, do a walkthrough of the exterior perimeter, then settle into the security office to monitor the camera feeds. Every hour, I'd do another patrol, checking doors looking for anything out of place. Between patrols, I'd read, browse my phone, occasionally doze off for a few minutes. The security office was a small room near the front entrance with a desk, a chair, a mini fridge, and a wall of monitors showing feeds from 12 different cameras. 6 exterior, 6 interior. The setup was old but functional. The night everything went wrong started pretty normally. It was February, cold enough that there was snow on the ground and more falling steadily. I did my 11 p.m. exterior patrol, checked all the loading dock doors, confirmed everything was secure, then went back inside to warm up. Around 1:30 a.m., I got a motion alert on one of the loading dock cameras. This wasn't particularly unusual. The system was sensitive and wind, falling snow, or animals could trigger it. I pulled up that feed and watched for a minute. Everything looked normal. Just the empty loading dock, snow falling through the yellow glow of the floodlights, creating that static-like effect on the camera. I went back to the article I'd been reading on my phone. 10 minutes later, another alert. Same camera. I checked again. Still nothing visible. Just the dock, the snow, the lights. 15 minutes after that, another alert. By 2:30, that camera had triggered maybe 6 or 7 times. No other cameras were alerting, just that one. Each time I checked the feed, I saw nothing unusual. But what started bothering me was that the movement always seemed to happen just at the edge of the frame. Like something was there but staying just out of view of the camera's angle. I made a note to have maintenance check that camera during the day. Maybe the mounting was loose and it was shifting in the wind. At 3 a.m. I decided to do an early patrol. The repeated alerts were making me uneasy, even though logically I knew it was probably nothing. The exterior was brutally cold. The wind had picked up, blowing snow sideways, and I could barely see more than 20 feet ahead. I walked the full perimeter of the loading dock area with my flashlight, checking each bay door, looking for footprints or any sign of tampering. Nothing. All the doors were secure. The only footprints in the snow were mine from the 11 p.m. patrol, and they were already being filled in by the fresh snowfall. I went back inside, my face numb from the cold, and returned to the security office. About 20 minutes later, at 3:22 a.m., I heard something that made my stomach drop. A loud, metallic scraping sound. Like something heavy being dragged across concrete. It came from inside the warehouse, somewhere deep in the building. I immediately checked all 6 interior cameras. Every feed showed empty aisles, dormant forklifts, stacked pallets of inventory. Nothing moving. I sat there, staring at the monitors, waiting for the sound to repeat. It didn't. After about 10 minutes, I convinced myself it was the building settling or maybe metal contracting in the cold. Old warehouses make noise. It's normal. At 4:15 a.m. I heard it again. Louder this time. That same metallic scraping, followed by a sharp bang, like something had struck one of the interior doors hard enough to make the impact echo. I cycled through the cameras again. Feeds 1 through 5 showed nothing unusual. When I switched to camera 6, which covered the back section of the warehouse near the emergency exit, the screen went black for about 3 seconds. Then static. Then the feed came back. But something was different. The camera angle had shifted. Just slightly, maybe 5 degrees to the left. Like someone had bumped it or deliberately adjusted its position. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. I grabbed my flashlight and radio. The radio connected to my supervisor's cell phone, but at 4:15 a.m., I wasn't sure he'd answer. I considered calling the police but realized how stupid I'd sound. I heard a noise and a camera moved slightly. I had to check it out myself first. The interior of the warehouse was massive. Long aisles of 20-foot-high metal shelving units, organized in a grid pattern. During the day it was bright and busy with forklifts and loading crews. At night, the overhead lights were dimmed to save power, casting everything in a weak, yellowish glow that created more shadows than illumination. I entered through the main door and paused, listening. The building was silent except for the hum of the ventilation system and the distant buzz of the few lights that stayed on. I started walking down the center aisle, my flashlight cutting through the dimness. Every few steps, I'd stop and listen, trying to detect any movement or sound that didn't belong. I was maybe halfway through the warehouse when I heard footsteps. Not my footsteps. Someone else's. Coming from somewhere to my left, maybe 2 or 3 aisles over. The moment I stopped walking, the footsteps stopped too. I stood there, barely breathing, my flashlight aimed toward where I thought the sound had come from. Complete silence. "This is security," I called out, my voice sounding less authoritative than I'd hoped. "I know you're in here. Make this easy on yourself and show yourself now." No response. My heart was hammering. I reached for my radio to call my supervisor, but before I could press the button, I heard the footsteps again. Closer this time. Moving deliberately, not running. Walking. And then they stopped again. I swung my flashlight toward the sound, illuminating an empty aisle. Just metal shelves and stacked inventory, shadows stretching and shifting as I moved the beam. "If you don't show yourself, I'm calling the police," I shouted. Still nothing. I started backing toward the main entrance, keeping my flashlight sweeping side to side. The footsteps started again, pacing me, staying parallel but out of sight. This continued for what felt like forever. Every time I moved, the footsteps moved. Every time I stopped, they stopped. I finally made it back to the entrance and hit my radio. My supervisor answered on the third try, groggy and annoyed. "There's someone in the warehouse," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need you to call the police." That woke him up. "Are you sure?" I heard footsteps. "Someone's definitely in here. Get out of the building and wait for the police outside." I didn't need to be told twice. I left the warehouse, locked the door behind me, and stood in the parking lot in the freezing cold, watching the building. The police arrived about 15 minutes later. 2 officers, both looking skeptical when I explained what had happened. But they took it seriously enough to do a full search of the building. They were inside for almost 40 minutes. When they came out, they looked confused. "There's nobody in there," one of them said. "We checked every aisle, every room, all the bathrooms. Nothing." "I heard footsteps," I insisted. "Someone was definitely in there." "Could have been rats," the other officer suggested. "Or the building settling. These old places make all kinds of noise." "It wasn't rats. It was footsteps. Human footsteps." They exchanged a glance. "Well, if someone was in there, they're gone now. All the exits are secure. No signs of forced entry." They filed a report and left. My supervisor showed up around 6 a.m. to finish the shift with me. He was sympathetic but clearly thought I'd overreacted. "These buildings play tricks on you when you're alone all night," he said. "Sound travels weird, echoes off the metal, makes you think things are closer or more real than they are." Maybe he was right. Maybe I'd let my imagination run away with me. But there were two things I didn't tell anyone. The first was what I found during the final hour of my shift, after my supervisor had gone to grab coffee from the gas station down the road. I did one last patrol before clocking out, partly to prove to myself that I wasn't losing it, that the building was just a building. I walked back to where camera 6 was positioned, the one that had shifted angles. I wanted to see if there was any obvious explanation for why it had moved. When I got there, I found something on the floor directly beneath the camera. Footprints. Fresh ones, in the thin layer of dust that accumulates on warehouse floors despite regular cleaning. Boot prints, size looked like maybe a men's 10 or 11. They led from the camera position down one of the aisles, then disappeared where the floor had been recently cleaned. Someone had been there. Had touched that camera. Had walked those aisles while I was watching the feeds. The second thing I didn't tell anyone was what I saw on the security footage later. My supervisor had left around 7:15, and I was in the security office finishing up the incident report when I decided to review the saved footage from that night. I wanted to see if the cameras had caught something I'd missed. I started with camera 6, the one that had moved. I rewound to around 4 a.m., just before I'd heard the first scraping sound. At 4:03 a.m., the camera jerked slightly. Not from wind or vibration. Someone had deliberately adjusted it, their hand briefly visible at the edge of the frame. But here's the thing that made my blood run cold. According to the timestamp, that adjustment happened at 4:03 a.m. I had been sitting in the security office at 4:03 a.m., watching that camera feed. I had been looking directly at it when it went to static. But in the saved footage there was no static. No interruption in the feed at all. Just a hand reaching up and adjusting the camera. Which meant someone had not only been in the warehouse, they had somehow manipulated what I was seeing on the live feed. They'd made me see static and a reconnection while they were physically moving the camera. That requires technical knowledge. Access to the security system. Understanding of how to interrupt a feed without triggering alarms. I saved that footage to a USB drive and put it in my locker. Then I spent the next hour going through every second of recording from all 12 cameras. At 3:47 a.m., camera 2, which covered the loading dock area, caught something. A figure, barely visible in the falling snow, standing at the edge of the frame. Exactly where I'd thought I'd seen movement earlier. They stood there for approximately 4 minutes, not moving, just watching the building. Then they walked out of frame toward the side entrance. At 3:52 a.m., nothing on any interior cameras. At 3:53 a.m., camera 4, which covered the main warehouse entrance, showed the door opening. No one came through. The door just opened on its own and stayed that way for 6 seconds before closing. At 3:54 a.m., still nothing on the interior cameras. But the door had opened. Someone had come inside. So where were they? I kept watching. Cycling through every feed looking for any sign of movement. At 4:01 a.m. I finally saw it. Camera 3, which was positioned to cover the office hallway. For exactly 2 seconds, a shadow passed across the wall. Just a shadow, no source visible, moving from left to right. At 4:03 a.m., the hand adjusting camera 6. At 4:17 a.m., the bang I'd heard. On the footage, one of the emergency exit doors swung open and closed. But no one was visible pushing it. Whoever had been in the warehouse knew exactly where the cameras were positioned. They knew the blind spots, the angles, how to move through the building while staying just out of frame. That level of knowledge suggested this wasn't a random break-in. I called my supervisor and told him I needed to show him something. He came back and we watched the footage together. I watched his face go from skeptical to concerned. "That's not rats," he said quietly. "No, it's not. We need to call the police again. Show them this." We did. Detective Morris came out around 9 a.m., after the day shift had arrived. We showed her everything. The footage, the footprints beneath camera 6, the pattern of movement that suggested someone with intimate knowledge of the security system. She took the investigation seriously. Seized the security footage, interviewed me extensively about everything that had happened that night. She asked about current and former employees, anyone who might have had access to the building and technical knowledge of the security setup. Over the next week they investigated. Ran the footage through enhancement software, checked employment records, interviewed the maintenance crew and former security guards. They never found who it was. The only thing they determined was that the person had likely entered through the side door using a key or key card that had never been reported lost. They'd moved through the building deliberately, adjusting cameras, creating sounds to test my response, all while staying invisible to the security system. This was a test run, Detective Morris told me during our final meeting. Whoever did this was preparing for something bigger. Learning the security routines, finding the weaknesses. So what happens now? I asked. We're recommending the company upgrade their entire security system. New cameras, new locks, better coverage. And we'll be increasing patrols in this area. Should I be worried? She paused before answering. The fact that they didn't confront you or try to harm you suggests that wasn't their goal. They were gathering information. But whether they plan to use that information, we can't know. I worked 2 more shifts at that warehouse before I quit. I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't sit in that security office knowing someone had been in the building with me, watching me watch the cameras, orchestrating the whole thing like a game. The company did upgrade their security. Installed new cameras with better coverage, changed all the locks, added additional patrols. As far as I know, there haven't been any more incidents. But I think about it constantly. About that figure standing in the snow watching the building. About the shadow moving through the hallway. About someone being in the warehouse with me for over 30 minutes while I searched, matching my movements, staying just out of sight. The worst part is knowing I'll never find out who it was or what they were planning. Were they casing the place for a robbery? Corporate espionage, stealing inventory manifests or client information? Or was it something else entirely, something darker? I'll never know. But I know I'll never work overnight security again. Because now I understand that the cameras and locks and procedures don't actually keep you safe. They just give you the illusion of safety. And when someone understands your security system better than you do, when they can manipulate what you see and hear, when they can move through a building like a ghost, you're not safe at all. You're just prey. Thank you for that submission. The violation of knowing someone was inside, manipulating everything you thought was keeping you secure, is absolutely terrifying. Now for our final story of the night. Story 4, The Runner. This memory still terrifies me, and outside of police and some close family, this is my first time fully revisiting it in detail. A few years ago when I was 23, I got my first job at a 24-hour gym called Apex Fitness. At the time, I was in a gap year between finishing my undergraduate degree and starting a master's program, so I took a lot of night shifts to save money and keep busy. The gym was open around the clock and accessed by keycard only after 10 p.m., meaning there were often only 1 or 2 employees working late hours. Most of the time, it was just me from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. on weeknights. People could check in with their keycards, use whatever equipment they wanted, and leave. The whole facility ran itself, basically. All entries, exits, and equipment usage were tracked digitally, so my job was mostly just to sit in the office, monitor the cameras, occasionally walk around to check on things, do light cleaning, and be available if anyone had questions or problems. This particular gym was in a rough part of town, but honestly, the members were generally pretty decent people. It was one of those places where the regulars all kind of knew each other, and there was a community vibe despite the late hours. The office where I spent most of my shift had 6 monitors showing feeds from cameras positioned throughout the gym. Main entrance, weight area, cardio section, locker rooms, hallways only, not inside, group fitness room and parking lot. Pretty standard setup. The night this happened, I was working my usual 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift on a Wednesday. It was mid-March, still cold enough that most people didn't want to be out late, so the gym was quieter than usual. Around 2 a.m., I'd already done several walkthroughs and finished all the routine cleaning and paperwork. I was exhausted, fighting to keep my eyes open, so I decided to just park myself in front of the monitors and watch some videos on my phone during the slow hours. There were only 3 people in the gym at that point. 2 regulars I recognized, an older guy who came in every night around midnight to use the stationary bike, and a woman in her 30s who did weight training. They were both in their usual spots, doing their usual routines. The third person was someone I didn't recognize. I first noticed him on the cardio section camera. He was on a treadmill in the far corner, running. Nothing unusual about that initially. New members came through occasionally and plenty of people ran at weird hours. What caught my attention was how fast he was running. Our treadmills have digital displays that show speed, time, distance, all that. From the camera angle, I could see his display clearly enough to read it. He was running at 9.5 miles per hour. That's fast. Not Olympic level or anything, but definitely an impressive pace to maintain. I watched casually, kind of impressed, figuring he was training for something or just one of those fitness enthusiasts who push themselves hard. But he didn't slow down. 5 minutes passed. Still 9.5 miles per hour. His pace never varied. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. The same speed, no slowing, no brakes. I checked the equipment monitoring system on my computer, which tracks how long each machine has been in use. His treadmill had been running for 32 minutes at 9.5 miles per hour when I first noticed him. That seemed off. Even experienced runners usually vary their pace, take walking breaks, something. But this guy was maintaining the exact same speed like a machine. I looked closer at the camera feed. The man was wearing ragged clothes. Not gym clothes, but torn jeans and a stained t-shirt that looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. His hair was long and matted, hanging down past his shoulders. And his face never moved. He was just staring straight ahead at the wall, expression completely blank, mouth slightly open. Then I noticed his feet. He was barefoot. He'd been running at 9.5 miles per hour for over 30 minutes with no shoes. I felt my stomach turn. That can't be right. That would shred his feet. I zoomed in on the camera feed as much as the system would allow. The treadmill belt beneath his feet looked dark. What? That's when I realized it wasn't sweat. It was blood. I stood up from my chair so fast it rolled backward and hit the wall. My heart was pounding as I stared at the monitor in disbelief. The conveyor belt of the treadmill was leaving a blood trail with every rotation. Not just spots but smears. His feet were literally being torn apart with each step, and he wasn't stopping. Wasn't slowing down. Wasn't reacting to the pain at all. His face remained the same. Blank. Staring. Mouth open. I checked the system again. The other 2 gym members had already left. Their checkout time showed them leaving at 1:47 and 1:53 a.m. I was alone in the gym with this man. I grabbed my phone and keys, but I knew I had to go out there. I had to try to get him to stop. This was an emergency. He was hurting himself badly. The cardio section was located almost directly adjacent to the employee hallway. I'd have to walk maybe 30 feet from the office to reach it. I took a deep breath, unlocked the office door, and stepped into the hallway. The gym's nighttime lighting was dim, just enough to see but not bright. Most of the light came from the emergency exit signs and the few overhead fixtures that stayed on. As soon as I turned the corner into the cardio section, my heart stopped. The treadmill was covered in blood. Not just a little bit. The belt, the sides, the floor around it, all smeared and splattered with dark red blood that looked almost black under the dim lighting. His feet weren't just bleeding. They were destroyed. The skin was completely torn away in places, exposing raw flesh. Pieces of skin had gathered at the back of the treadmill where the belt rotated. But he was still running. Still at 9.5 miles per hour. Still staring straight ahead with that blank expression and his mouth hanging open. I felt like I was going to vomit. I forced myself to stay calm and raised my voice. "Sir, you need to stop. You're hurting yourself." No response. His eyes didn't shift. His expression didn't change. I got closer, careful to avoid the blood on the floor. "Sir, stop the treadmill. Right now." Still nothing. Like he couldn't hear me at all. I reached toward the treadmill's emergency stop button, but before I could hit it, he spoke. His voice was cold and raspy, like gravel scraping against concrete. He didn't look at me, didn't turn his head, just kept staring forward as he ran. "Are you there?" The words made my skin crawl. The tone was wrong. Completely emotionless, like a recording rather than a person speaking. "What?" I said, taking a step back. "Are you there?" He repeated, exact same tone, exact same inflection. "Yes, I'm here. You need to stop running. You're bleeding. Are you there?" It was like he was stuck, repeating the same phrase over and over. I tried again. "Listen to me. I'm going to stop the treadmill, okay? You're hurt. Are you there? Are you there? Are you there?" The repetition was getting faster, more frantic, but his voice stayed monotone. His face still hadn't moved. He was still running at 9.5 miles per hour, blood continuing to pool beneath the machine. I backed away, pulling out my phone to call 911. But before I could dial, I glanced at the monitor visible from the cardio section. He was staring directly at the camera. Not at me. at the camera positioned in the corner of the ceiling. His head had turned at some point, and now he was looking straight into the lens while continuing to run, blood spraying from his feet with each step. And then he started screaming. Not words, just screaming. A high-pitched, inhuman sound that filled the entire gym. It echoed off the walls, distorted, seemingly coming from everywhere at once. I turned back toward him, but he was still staring at the camera, mouth stretched open impossibly wide, that scream pouring out of him. And then, without warning, he stopped running. He didn't slow down. He just suddenly stopped his legs mid-stride, and the treadmill belt kept going, instantly throwing him backward off the machine. He hit the floor hard, rolled once, and immediately stood up. That's when I saw his eyes clearly for the first time. They were wrong. The pupils were dilated so wide they were almost entirely black, and there was no awareness in them. No consciousness, like looking at a mannequin. He started walking toward me. Not running, just walking. Slow, deliberate steps, leaving bloody footprints on the gym floor. I backed toward the employee hallway, but he was between me and the office. I'd have to go past him to get there. "Sir, stay back," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm calling the police. Just stay where you are." He didn't respond. Just kept walking, those dead eyes fixed on me, blood dripping from his ruined feet with each step. I turned and ran the opposite direction, toward the main entrance. If I could get outside, I'd be safer. There were businesses nearby, other people. But when I reached the entrance, the door wouldn't open. It was locked, which shouldn't have been possible. The emergency exit should always be accessible from inside. I spun around. He was maybe 20 feet away now, still walking slowly but steadily toward me. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 while backing along the wall, trying to put distance between us. The dispatcher answered immediately. 911, what's your emergency? I'm at Apex Fitness on Chamberlain Street. There's a man here, he's hurt and acting erratically. He's bleeding everywhere and he won't stop following me. I'm trapped inside. Are you in immediate danger? Yes. He's walking toward me right now and I can't get out. Officers are on their way. Stay on the line with me. The man was 15 feet away now. 10 feet. I pressed myself against the wall, looking for any escape route. He's almost reached me, I whispered into the phone. And then he stopped. Just stopped walking about 5 feet away from me. We stood there in silence for what felt like an eternity. I could hear his breathing, slow and steady, like he wasn't injured at all. His mouth opened again. Are you there? Before I could respond, I heard sirens outside. The police had arrived. The moment those sirens became audible, the man turned away from me. He walked back toward the cardio section, moving with that same slow, deliberate pace. I stayed pressed against the wall, phone clutched in my hand, watching him disappear around the corner. The police broke through the front entrance about 30 seconds later. 3 officers, guns drawn, shouting commands. I pointed toward the cardio section. He went that way. He's injured. There's blood everywhere. 2 officers went in that direction while the 3rd stayed with me, asking questions, checking if I was hurt. After about 5 minutes, the other officers came back. One of them was pale. There's a lot of blood, he said. But there's no one there. What do you mean? He just walked back there. We cleared the entire gym. All the rooms, the locker rooms, storage, everything. He's gone. That's impossible. There's only one exit and you're standing at it. They searched again. Spent another 20 minutes going through every inch of the gym. Checking vents, ceiling panels, anywhere a person could potentially hide. Nothing. No sign of him. But the blood was real. The treadmill was covered in it. The trail of footprints led from the machine to where he'd stood near me, then back toward the cardio section, and then they just stopped. No exit. No explanation for where he went. The paramedics arrived and processed the scene. The amount of blood suggested serious injury. They said whoever had been running on that treadmill should have been in shock, possibly dead from blood loss. But there was no body. No person. Just blood and torn skin and the lingering echo of that scream in my memory. The police took my statement. They reviewed the security footage, which showed everything I'd described. The man running, me confronting him walking toward me, then walking away when the sirens started. But after he turned the corner, he disappeared from the cameras. All of them. Like he simply ceased to exist. The investigation went nowhere. They couldn't identify him from the footage. No matching descriptions and missing persons reports. No DNA hits from the blood samples. Just a ghost who ran until his feet destroyed themselves, then vanished into thin air. I quit the next day. Didn't even go back to collect my final paycheck. They had to mail it to me. I still can't explain what I saw that night. Drugs maybe. PCP or bath salts, something that would make someone impervious to pain and give them inhuman endurance. But that doesn't explain where he went. How he disappeared from a locked building with police at the only exit. And it doesn't explain his eyes. The complete absence of anything human in them. Sometimes I wonder if he's still out there somewhere. Still running. Still bleeding. Still asking, "Are you there?" to anyone who gets close enough to hear. I hope I never find out. A special thank you to everyone who submitted their stories today. These experiences remind us that the night shift exposes us to things most people never see, moments that happen in the hours when most of the world is asleep. If you liked today's submissions, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a new story. Until next time, stay cautious, trust your instincts, and remember, some things only come out when the sun goes down.